And I'm interviewing Mr. Armando Flores, Judge Armando Flores, um, for the U.S. Latina Oral History World War II project, and we're sitting in his home in Corpus Christi, Texas. Before we start, I want to start off by letting Mr. Cantu know how much we appreciate.
How about Mr. Flores?
Mr. Flores. Sorry. I have notes from yesterday written here, so excuse me, Mr. Flores. Know that we really appreciate you sitting down, taking the time out with us, and all the documentation you've sent us, and really appreciate everything. We start off and talk about what it was like growing up as a child, and any childhood memories that are memorable for you, your family, and how you grew up. And
all right. We came to Corpus Christi in 1929. I was born in 1921. I was 8, going on 9 years old, and I went to first grade, and I went to a segregated school here. The first school I went to was a segregated school here. The name of the school, Chesney Heath School, right down the street here from where we're at right now. And my family came from Mission, Texas. I was born in Mission, Texas in 1921. I am the last living survivor of my family. All my family have passed away. I am the youngest one in the family. I will be 80 years old September the 17th this coming year. My father and my ancestors, and in fact my Spanish side of the family, we came from Asturias, Spain. Asturias is a province on the northern part of Spain, close to the border of France, right there where the Bay of Biscay is. And we came from there. On my mother's side, I am Indian, I'm Native American Indian. I don't know whether we are like I mentioned, we're either Comanches or Apaches in South Texas, but I believe we were probably the tribe that was very domesticated. This particular tribe lived in Coahuila in the northern part of Mexico, and it was there that my dad, this particular tribe of people, this section of people, moved into land grants, because we came here with the land grants in 1740, and we've been here all this time. Coming into Corpus Christi and getting back to the present here, I was here, I grew up during the Depression. I went to a segregated school. Just recently, through my efforts and the efforts of some gentlemen, ladies and men who were attended that segregated school with me 71, 72 years ago, we managed to get us a historical marker for that school. And last October, we had it erected. The historical marker is at the south side of the courthouse. That's the site where the courthouse now stands on Lipan Street. And by coincidence, we have the marker there for the segregated school, Chesney Heath. And we have across the street the historical marker for ULACS, the Latin American Association, ULACS, that was founded here in Corpus Christi in 1929. And I am very familiar with the history since I attended public schools, and I have lived in the neighborhood with the children and the grandchildren of those people, and I've had contact with those families with all of my life. I'm now 79 years old. I will be 80 years old in September, and last night I attended a funeral where some of my old friends were there. It was we had a community gathering last night at the funeral home. And
you grew up in the Depression.
Correct.
What was that actually like, living in Corpus Christi and with your family? How did you make it?
All right. Well, as a young child, and most of my friends did the same thing, I shined shoes on Leopard Street, downtown Corpus Christi. I sold newspapers, our local paper, the Corpus Christi Color Times. I delivered telegrams. Many of my friends who went to senior high school, our last 2 years of high school, many of us worked for Western Union at that time. I was number 30, and we had a ball because back in those days, times were very hard. And I tell everybody, why, my goodness, during the Depression, you could buy 20 hamburgers for $1. Hamburgers were 5 cents. In fact, with 35 cents, we could have a party with a couple of girlfriends, a couple of drinks and 5 hamburgers. So it was really something, but money was that scarce. My first job, actually, after Chu Chinan and newspapers, was working in a bottling company up the street here on Leopard Street, and we used to bottle a drink called Knee High. It was a flavored drink, strawberry, orange, grape, and what have you, and banana. They used to have a banana drink, and then we had back about the time when the Hippo drink was a 16-ounce drink for a nickel, came out of San Antonio. Well, the people here in Corpus Christi opened up a drink for 16 ounces for a nickel called the Jumbo drink, and we used to work there for $3 a week when we were 15 and 16 years old. Many of my friends, this was a plant that was really going back in those days, and many of my friends, as many as 14 or 15 of us, work in the plant just about a few blocks from where we're sitting here right now. The place is no longer there. It's gone out of business. The people have sold out. They were Greeks who were the owners of the place, and they're all gone. They're not with us anymore. I'm sure that their generations, in fact, one of them became a doctor, and he's a doctor, and of course he's probably my age right now. He may have retired. So that was what was going on. We were just going out of the Depression, we would say, when all of a sudden we had Pearl Harbor, and I'm pretty sure you want to know something about what we were doing. On December the 7th, 1941, I was riding my bicycle down Leopard Street, one of the main thoroughfares here in Corpus Christi, on my way to Hillcrest with a bunch of telegrams in my sack, in my duffel bag. And I've come before this restaurant we used to have here, a little cafe called the Chat and Chew. And many of my young friends who had graduated school with me in May of 1941 were there, and they were yelling, "Now we can enlist. Let's get permission to enlist," because back in those days, to enlist in the service, you had to be 21 years old. I was 19 going on my 20th birthday, so I had to have permission. So nevertheless, we enlisted right after Pearl Harbor. Many of us stayed around for the holidays, and I went into the service on January the 15th, 1942. I ended up in the Air Force, the Air Corps. I wanted to be a machine gunner. Everybody wanted to be a machine gunner like James Gagney in the movies. And of course, well, I ended up going to armament school in Lauriefield in Denver, Colorado, back in 1942. It was while waiting to go to finish that armament school and take my exam for the gunnery school at Las Vegas back in those days that I became ill with rheumatic fever. And of course, I didn't know. I thought I had a cold, but I had quit eating and I hadn't eaten, and apparently, for all I remember, is I must have passed out in the ranks. And they took me to the hospital and diagnosed me as a fellow with a bad case of rheumatic fever. Later, I learned that I was carrying a fever of 102, 103, and I had been doing that for I don't know how long, because I just didn't know any better. To begin with, I wanted to serve in the service. I ended in the hospital at Denver, Colorado, at Lauriefield, at Fitzsimmons Hospital, and I was discharged later with a disability, the DD2 or something, a disability because rheumatic fever, if you don't know about it, will affect your heart, affected my heart valves, and I was given an honorable discharge, and of course I have the papers where they even gave me a 10% disability back in those days, which was about $11 a month, something like that. Whatever the case, that is my. I didn't win the war. I had great expectations. Many of my friends joined the Navy and the Army, and they would write to me and all that kind of stuff. And and it's just one of those things. I got out of the service. The DAV, I became a member of the Disabled American Veterans because of my disability. And through the DAV, I was working in a print shop. And the DAV came up and says, why don't you want to be do you want to be a printer? So they placed me on a training program which was a good trade back in those days. And I got involved with dealing with offset printing, which is printing off of negatives and things like that. It's very technical. It was very technical then. It was nothing like what we have right now. But back in those days, the biggest people involved with that kind of printing was the Multigraph Corporation and the Multilith. They started building the Multilith machines, which is a process of printing from negatives onto plates and doing camera work. Well, as an apprentice to that, under the DAV program, I took about, I think it was 24 months training on it, and I became very proficient at it and got to where we could make a decent salary back in 43, 44, and 45. And I ended up, after that, somehow or other Nueces County found out. Well, Nueces County knew, the auditor at Nueces County knew that I knew how to handle those kind of machines because I used to deliver the printing from commercial shops to the county courthouse businesses. And on one occasion, the county auditor, Mr. Kelvin Ramfield, asked me, say, we have a machine up here and we don't know how to operate it. And I says, well, what kind of machine is it? And he showed me the plate. I said, well, this is an offset machine, and I know how to operate these machines. So lo and behold, and we're talking about June the 15th, 1949, I started my career as an employee of Nueces County here in Corpus Christi, as running the offset press in the print shop, doing all of the printing, work for the county, up to a size of 10 by 14 sheet, legal papers, letter-sized papers, envelopes, checks, and what have you, anything, warrants, anything like that, citations, all the printing. And eventually I was saving the county a lot of money, so I stayed there with him for, until I became a court interpreter. So you want to ask me some more, I can tell you.
I want to go back and get a little more detail, because you've told me how you progressed from, growing up and being in World War II for a short period of time and then coming back and what you did. But actually, tell me a little about what it was actually like. I mean, during the Depression and with your family, you were the youngest one.
Okay, well, I was the youngest one. Of course, I had 4 sisters at the house, and they did work. They worked for McCrory's and Cresses and things like that, in ice cream plants and everything like that. Life was very, very hard in this respect. There was work, but the work that paid was nothing. A working man was working for 50 cents an hour. A man with a family was making maybe $8, $9 a week. And of course, things were very cheap. I mean, rents, for example, $3 a week, $12 a month rent. Whoever heard of that? Well, people lived in houses where they were paying rent by the month, $10, $9, $12. High rent was $20 a week back in those days. A loaf of bread was a nickel. Ice cream was a nickel. In fact, you had a nickel. If you had a quarter, you could buy yourself a good meal any place. A bowl of chili. Whether chili and chili beans. Chili was 10 cents. Chili beans was a nickel. And people, I tell you what, that's all right. We had food lines and we had relief and things like that because there were so many people unemployed. And there were lines of people getting free food. And there were kitchens. In fact, the grammar school that I went to, Chesney Heath School, and giving credit to our principal, Ms. Rose Shaw, who we have a school named after her here in Corpus Christi. Ms. Rose Shaw, through her efforts and volunteers and church, she was a very devout Catholic, and got a soup kitchen or a bean kitchen or a rice kitchen, whatever you want to call it, to feed some of the children who had nothing to eat. In other words, who went to school hungry. And I and me and many of my friends, we were involved with that. Of course, the school was just about 6 blocks from my house, and since we did have so many of my sisters working in New York, we always had something to eat. We would run, 3 or 4 of us would run to our houses. We had maybe half an hour to eat. We would run quick as could be, eat whatever we had to eat, and then run back to the school, up and down Mestania Street, which is just a couple of blocks over from where I'm at right now. And we used to do that. And of course, times were very hard. Times were very hard.
So what did you do for fun then?
Well, for fun, we were always busy trying to, we had a saying in Spanish, a ver qué traes para la casa, see what you can bring to the house. And of course, what we did, listen to this, this is very important. We used to go fishing. Fish was plentiful in the bay. There were no regulations. There was no fishing license, nothing like that. We could go up there with little old hooks and some pieces of meat or anything, and we could catch fish. Let me tell you something. Fish were so plentiful on the bayfront, right there where Water Street is. Now we have here, Water Street used to be the bayfront. Whenever we had a high tide here, all of downtown Corpus Christi if we had a 2-foot high tide or a 3-foot high tide, the water would come into the city of Corpus Christi on Water Street, on Chaparral Street, on Mesquite Street, down to the bluff where the bluff is here in Corpus Christi. And so there was plenty of fish. And we would go up there, and fish was so plentiful that we'd catch some pretty big trouts, bring them home, and we ate a lot of fish. I want you to know that. And people would stop us and buy the fish from us for a quarter. Yeah.
That's how you made some money.
We were having fun making money, and we would work in the shrimp sheds. You know, then there was a lot of shrimp back in those days, and there was not too many people catching shrimp. So the fishing and the shrimp industry was the beginning of Corpus Christi. When I came to Corpus, there was only 35,000 people here. And now we have well over 300,000 people here in 72 years, let's say. So back in those days, the fishing industry was a big thing. The shrimping industry was a big thing. We had fishing sheds and shrimp sheds on Water Street, on the bayfront here, where people would be hired and not peel the shrimp, but take the head off, and just go in there. And I got to be pretty good at it with my 2 hands. We'd do it, and we would get, if I remember correctly, I think it was 10 cents a bucket every time we did that. And we could do it pretty fast. We were pretty soon. We'd come home a little smelly. Very smelly. Says, go and take a bath, and then come back and eat supper. See, but we used to do that, and that was one way to do it. And if you had a lot of people at home and everybody was doing something, well, it was easy. Not easy. It was not expensive to live if you had a job, and that was it. That was it. And there was plenty of work to do. I mean. Of course, in the summertime, incidentally, in the summertime when the seasons for the cotton crops would come, the Leopard Street would be full of thousands of people picking up their groceries for the weekend and stuff like that. People would just be waiting for them. Downtown, they'd be waiting for you to go down there and buy your clothes and buy your blue jeans. Actually, they're all blue jeans. The big thing was khaki pants and tennis shoes and things like that. Tennis shoes, T-shirts, and the merchants were they had hawkers, hawkers. They had people on the outside of stores. Marchanta, come on in here right now. This is the best place to buy. Somos más baratos, talking in Spanish. Our prices are better than my compadre next door. See? And sometimes they throw in a jesting way, they would throw maybe an apple or something that somebody says, "You're talking too much. We got the best food. We got the best." But it was, in fact, Leopard Street had, from about the second block from the bluff, fruit stands and little grocery tendajitos, little stores, all over, all the way to practically Port Avenue here, for about 8 or 9 blocks. The same thing was with Agnes Street, where the Hispanic community lived. And of course, the traffic jam, everybody on trucks, everybody buying something, everybody eating watermelon off the back of a truck or stuff like that. It was fun time. There's pictures where you can't even walk. You can't even walk down the street because the multitude of people walking up and down. It was a big deal to come from all over to the big city, from all over the neighbor towns of Sinton and Taft and Portland and Robstown. They would come to the big town to see the beach, to take a bath in North Beach and even do a little fishing and sightseeing, because this was the biggest town. And watch the bridge go up. We used to have a bridge that went up when the boats came in, the Basco Bridge, and people would run up there. They would hear the horns and tooting and making noise. There was a boat coming in 3 or 4 miles away. They'd run up there to watch the bridge rise up. So it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun around the bay. It was a fun place. There was not the kind of life that we have right now of people being mischievous. Everybody was too busy trying to make a living, look out for themselves, and protect their families. It was very good. It was very well knit. Families worked together. Right. Families worked together, went to church together, and there was nothing to take them away from the family doings. There was no television. The only thing we had was radio, and the radio we had. And someone was asking me, "Well, how come you grew up learning English and Spanish?" Well, we had the English in the movies, right. English movies. We had Spanish movies from Mexico. And above all, we had the radio, and we used to listen to Amos and Andy, Fleaver McGee and Molly, the beginning of Bob Hope and Jack Benny shows in English, and we could understand them. And of course in Spanish we had at one time, and I'm pretty sure it's still there, the station in Mexico City, which is way up high up there, a mile high, 2 miles high. At 6,000 feet, something like that, was one of the strongest Spanish stations in the world, and we could listen to Spanish radio and Spanish novelas, and people got hooked on Spanish novelas, and you couldn't. My sister says, "Everybody get out of the house and quit talking. We want to listen to the novela," or whatever it was. So that was the entertainment that we had.
What about your parents? What did your parents do during that time?
Well, here we go. We were ranchers. We were, my daddy was a rancher. He was a horseman. My brothers were all horsemen and stuff like that. See, I'm the only one of a family of males who was born in the city. I was born in Mission, Texas. All my brothers and my youngest sister and I were born in Mission, Texas. My brothers were all born on the ranch. They took care of cattle. They knew how to brand cattle, roundups. They knew how to slaughter cattle, to take the meat to the market and stuff like that. They did that. They were good at it. When we came to Corpus, only 2 of my brothers came with us to Corpus here. They were already married, and they of course went to butcher shops, and they knew what to do. My dad was a big business back in those days. Was people would bring in little goats, cabritos, to eat for the Hispanic community, and my daddy would deal in that because he knew. Well, we had cabritos in Stark County where we came from. Our relatives would just let us have the cabritos and the goats and stuff like that on credits. We'd bring them here, and Dad would go back and take care of and pay them for it, because you could buy cabrito for $5. Now you pay $50, $60 for them. Yeah. So there was no problem. My dad was up in his years when he came, and he worked around in construction work and stuff like that. My mother, of course, doing the housework, always had. In fact, my mother never worked for nobody. And my mother lived to be 90, 91, 92 years old. She passed away in 1972. Any other question?
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about your actual experience. And you went in and enlisted thinking that you were going to be James Cagney, but what was it actually like while you were there? I mean, the experiences that you had.
Oh, well, one thing I'll never forget, that I didn't know they were going to get us up so early in the morning. The first day I was at Sam Houston, because we enlisted and we go to Sam Houston for indoctrination and things like that. For the first 2 weeks, find out which is your right hand and your left hand and stuff like that. And I'll never forget this Sergeant Jackson came up and says, "Okay, boys, it's time to get up, 4 o'clock in the morning." And of course, I weighed about 135, 140 pounds. He picked up my cot and flipped me like a pancake. And I hit myself on the side. I said, in fact, I got mad. See, I said, what the guy think he is? And I realized I was in the Army. And of course, I said, well, my goodness. And the fellow that enlisted with me, Alfonso, God bless him, he's very sick in Pensacola right now. I hope he get well, Poncho, soon. He says, I tell you what, it's going to be like this from now on. So we took the first 3 weeks basic training, and then we took the regular hard stuff training, the 16 weeks, or not even 16 weeks. I think it was maybe 5 weeks or 6 weeks at Shepherd Field, Texas. Cold. I'd never been so cold in all my life. And I'll never forget, one thing I remember, we're standing in the cold there, and I had forgotten to put on my OD jacket, and I came out just in my regular, the blue jean deal, the coveralls. Came out there on the field, and it must have been below freezing. The wind was blowing from Oklahoma into Shepherd Field, and everybody was in line and huddled. And we had our hands in our pocket, and a lieutenant got on the platform up there and says, American soldiers, stand at attention. In a cold day or a hot day, they never keep their hands in their pockets. And man, we all got to attention quick. And funny thing about it, and the reason I remember that is because nobody had ever called me an American until that time. I told these guys that were with me, there was a bunch of guys from South Texas. Oh yeah, we were talking in Spanish. Oh yeah, did you hear that? He called us American soldiers. And I'll never forget that. I've said that to a lot of people. That was the first time in my life I had been called an American. I had been called a lot of things through growing up, nicknames, and wetback, and spick, and greaser. Those were fighting words. We used to get involved with a few fist fights with people like that. But actually, it was because they didn't understand us. I couldn't understand how come somebody didn't know who I was. I knew who I was, and I knew who my family was, and I knew who my family was for 300 years back, because my brothers and sisters, we kept a record of our family history. And we came to, like I was telling you, we came to Monterrey, which was Monterrey, Spain, in 1550. And I knew who I was. I knew my identity. I knew that I was a Spanish American, and because of my mother, I was an Indian Spanish American. I knew that. But these other people didn't seem to understand it. They were trying to put us down. So we had a couple of encounters. After we had a couple of encounters, maybe they realized, or anything like that. Some of the guys who tormented me in junior high school were my best friends in senior high school, because we played a little football together and stuff like that. But it was nothing that serious that led to anything else, except that there was a clash of two languages. together, and it was just, and right now it's still going on. Right now we have too many people saying no habla español. The way we are maturing as citizens of the world, it's been, and I'm going to show you some writing I got there, which I say that in the future for me to think about. I've always said this, and I said this, oh my goodness, when I was in high school, that North America, Central America, and South America together, two languages, two different cultures, one basic religion. As far as we Hispanics are concerned, we're Catholics. We've been Catholics for, I know, 500-600 years, because I have baptismal papers and I have marriage licenses that all say from my family, from the churches, and the cathedrals in Monterrey and Saltillo, see. And I know those things, and it's very important that eventually this business of no habla español is going to disappear because of the education that our children are getting. When I graduated from high school, there was only about 25 or 30 Hispanics that graduated, people that actually were pioneer citizens like myself, my families, Leal, Villarreal, Guerra, Izaguirre, Salinas, Gonzalez, Bailly. These people are my grandmothers. I just told you their names, and we're all we're all one big happy family. So the thing is, it's changing now. Right now, we're having so many. I have grandchildren in college right now. My four children all graduated. 3 graduated from Texas University. I think I told you that. And 1 from the University of Colorado. And now I've got a grandchild coming to be with us tomorrow, my Cassandra, who will be a sophomore at the University of Texas this coming fall. So there's a lot of changes coming, and through education, eventually people are going to realize that the world is getting smaller, and the world is going to be looking to the Americas for the future for guidance how to live under a democratic government. We haven't had too many democratic governments south of the Rio Grande. We are having them now. Right now, Mexico has a great president, Mr. Fox. He's coming up with a lot of ideas. Mexico has a great future as far as I'm concerned. They got the natural resources. They got the people who are willing to work under a democratic constitution and a Bill of Rights like we have here, and put it in practice, put the courts in practice, put the system in practice. I'm very much involved with courts all my life. So you put that in practice and let people respect those practices, I think we're going to have a great future, this part of the world, to set an example to the rest of the world to follow. We're going to do it. It's going to happen. What else?
Another question about the experience of going to segregated school, because you've mentioned it several times, and I know it's a memory that's close to home for you.
Yeah.
What was it like, and how did you progress? So you said that the people that made fun of you in junior high were your friends in senior high school. Were the senior high school, was that segregated also, or was it elementary?
No. Excuse me. Incidentally, the system was this: Hispanics went to a segregated school, or rather there was a segregated school here in Corpus Christi named Chesney Heath, and 99% of the children were Hispanics, were Lopez, Garcia, Flores, Gonzalez, and friends of mine. So we went to that school like that. After junior high school, there was no problem. In fact, a little history about when I went from the year 1935, very significant for Hispanics in Corpus Christi. The town has started to grow. We only had one junior high school, Northside Junior High School, here where the banks are. It's right across the street from the courthouse. And we had one senior high school, Roy Miller High School, back in those days. Eventually, the Hispanic population has started to grow so fast that we were getting kids into the junior high school more than we were getting Anglos at that time. in that respect that we were going from the 5th grade to the 6th grade in greater numbers.
Right.
In 1930, in greater numbers. And of course, the school system was not prepared for that. So in 1935, this happened in 1935. In 1935, they took the Anglo kids from the other schools and put them into the junior high school, North Side, and there was no room for the Hispanics. So it turned out that they told the Hispanics, friends of mine, one who lives not too far from here, my age, they told him, hey, you better go back, and they must have said, you better go back to the Mexican school and repeat the 5th grade because we don't have room for you. And they said that to the wrong guy. This young man, Ismael Arzuaga, God bless him, he's still here, he's my age, came and told his father that. And his father was one of the founders of LULACs. and on that occasion, LULACs got, I was just a young kid, I didn't know what happened. But what I'm telling you right now is what Ismael told me a few years later when we were in high school. He said, you know what, when I went to Northside, they didn't want me in there, so I went and told my daddy. So we got hold of Mr. Ben Garza, founder of the LULACs, Mr. Serna, Mr. Hinojosa, Mr. Galvan, and all the old senior citizens here, the first families here, property owners and business people here, and told them, hey, what's going on? Our kids need an education. I'm sure they had a confrontation.
Right.
And that brought about the building of a second junior high school here. That junior high school was started immediately, no doubt, because they finished it in 2 years. In 1937, they finished what junior high school? Windshield Junior High School, right here on Ayers. They came into being in 1937. During those 2 years, when I went to Northside, half a year behind these people here, for 2 years, I went to the 6th grade and the 7th grade, and even the 8th grade. Well, the 8th grade, I think I don't put too much into that. But we went, they had to divide us while they were building the school. They divided the school enrollment into North Side and South Side. That's how come he ended up calling nice North Side Junior High School. The South Side was for those who lived in the south of Morgan, towards the south, and it covered well, I can name the schools: at Furman School, and Minger School, and Fisher School. But I can remember right now those 3 schools there. And that divided the city, and of course then divided us in 2 football teams. The North Side's going to play the South Side. And we had a few encounters back in those days.
So on those lines that are segregated more because of where you lived, not necessarily what race you were?
Well, let me tell you. In other words, incidentally, okay, here we go back. The history of Chesney Heath School. It started in 1896. The founder, Mrs. Rose Shaw, her name was Rose Dunn, Irish family here. She was a single young lady, very devout Catholic, and if I didn't say that, I'm sorry I didn't. I want to say it right now. Very devout Catholic and a good Christian person. She spoke Spanish as well as I did, or as I do right now. She spoke very good Spanish. She was, would you believe, the president of the Mexican Parents Teachers Association. That's how involved she was with doing her volunteer work amongst the minorities, see? And she had a strong feeling for it. So I get a little sort of the truth here when I think about it, because she was a very nice lady. She stayed with the program, Chesney Heath School, from 1896. The school didn't get a name till 1917. All that time, from 96 to 1917, the school was this Mexican school, the grammar Mexican school, and they had the fathers and mothers were the Mexican parents of the Mexican children. That was the connotation, the acceptance of the community. The Hispanic families, the city was growing, and then it just started. We were just coming out in 38, 39, and 40. We were just coming out of the Depression, and then all of a sudden, boom, Pearl Harbor, and Corpus started growing, and of course that took an end to that. Now, how many high schools do we have here? I think I could name them. It's Miller, and it's Foy Moody, and this is just in the Corpus Christi district. King and Ray, and I believe that's it. It's 5 of them. So that's those 5 there. We have others in the community. Tuloso Midway School System. There's no more of the segregation business, and the West Oso School District is also a district here, and the Flower Bluff School District. So we have 4 or 5 school districts within the area of Nueces County, and we have the London School District, which is for the farm area, the farmers in this community here. And that's so much for the school system, and it's growing. It's growing. It's a tragic that the school systems, my personal opinion, in South Texas have been lacking in a lot of things, lacking in proper instruction for or sensitivity. I guess I would say that sensitivity. Right now, the population in Corpus Christi is such that I believe that over 50% of the population, of the scholastic population, are Hispanic Americans here. I think we're about 55%, which is a tremendous thing. So what are we looking to the future? We need to dedicate more funds for the educational system. We need certainly to keep up with the technology, the internet, the computers. We need to get signs. We need to get a lot of signs. In the paper this morning, there's an article that they're going to get tough and start teaching kids the basic English, languages, history, science, and mathematics, which are the basics for learning for anyone who wants to become a first-class citizen in the world, never mind in South Texas. And we have been strongly lacking in that. We need to pay our teachers more money. We need to be up to date with everybody, be second to no one. And certainly we need to someplace along the educational line, to teachers or anybody involved, to fathers and mothers, sensitivity as to people, who they are, what their origin is, where they come from, respect their color, respect their religion, respect their language, respect them, period. Respect can only bring you respect, and that's what it is. Discipline, keeping order in the family, setting a good example, teaching them the Lord's Prayer and the Hail Mary. I had some people from the Jehovah Witness, Altalaya we call, knock on my door. They come every Saturday, and they're friends of mine. And I tell them, Mike, can I tell you, I've been a Catholic 600 years. I have a ball with them. And we were talking up there this morning for about an hour, because they're up and down the street. And one of the things a lady told me, a Negro lady who lives not too far from here, says, you know what, Judge? She knows who I am. Says, you know what, Judge? She says, they're not teaching the kids the Lord's Prayer. And that's right. People are not doing that. People are watching a lot of bad things on television they shouldn't be watching. They should regulate. Fathers and mothers should spend more time with their children, show them their understanding. None of this business, get out of here, get out of my sight, I got enough to do. You've got to devote your child. If you don't devote your time to your child, boy or girl, they're going to go someplace else for something.
That's your advice to the
people? To the teachers and to the fathers and mothers. Because if they're neglecting their children, anda vete, here's $1, go and buy yourself something, get out of my way. They should discuss what they're doing, what's bothering them in school. Somebody could be bothering your children at school right now, and the children are afraid to talk about it. And before you know it, they'll form into a gang to protect themselves. And before you know it, they get involved in drugs. And before you know it, they're involved in probation. And before you know it, they're involved in correctional school. And before you know it, they're on their way to the penitentiary. As a employee of Nueces County for 51 years, through being a court interpreter with the criminal courts, I've interpreted many, many cases, children of people that I grew up with, their sons and their daughters. In fact, people would come to me when I was a court interpreter for almost 16 years at the courthouse. Instead of talking to the probation officer or even anybody else, they would come and ask me for advice and stuff like that. What am I going to do with my boy? I said, what? And of course, the question is, what have you been doing for your boy? Or you're doing some little league work, or you're doing some scout work, or you're doing some church work, or you're playing ball with him, or you're talking to him, or you're going fishing with him, or you're running around with him. Do you know who he hangs around with? Who are his friends? And can you name them? Because I've got that kind of training. I was a scoutmaster for years, and I've spent about 30 years of my life with Little League and Pony League and Teenage League and amateur boxing, amateur baseball, amateur basketball. I have taken teams to play ball in Monterey. When a few years ago, Monterey, Mexico in 1957 and 58 won the Little League World Championship in the United States of America. And you know how they got there? They had to come to the border. And then the system of Little League here in America, every time we start the playoff games, the money goes to the visiting teams or anything like that for expenses so that the winners can go on up the scale to all the other tournaments. Monterey, they walked across the river at Matamoros. Once they came into our hands here, the league took care of it. When they came to Corpus, they beat our Sox. Angel Macias and La Malita Torres, those fellows, I have their pictures here. I have them. You want to see them? I got their pictures. I took pictures of them back in those days. Now, listen to this. Not only did they go in 57 and won the World Championship, they did the same thing with practically all the same boys in 1958. And would you believe that 2 years ago, Guadalupe, Nuevo León, which is a suburb of Monterrey, won the Little League Championship again for the third time. Isn't that something?
It is.
And I've been part of their lives. And some of those kids grew up and they know me. They visit once in a while. I used to go very often to Monterrey. I can't get away anymore. Well, it's just one of those things. Most of my friends whom I met up there in the 50s, 60s, and 70s are no longer with us. So, but that's a good part of my life. And that's kept me very busy and very much involved in the community here.
Going back to when you came back after your service in the Army, what was that like, and what did people think about you serving in the Army and about you having a disability?
Well, I never told anybody in the first place. I never told anybody. And about that time, we started getting involved with the GI Forum. And incidentally, the GI Forum. Veterans started coming back like myself in 43, 44, and 45. Lots of them, disabled. No medical attention, no one to take care of them. There was bunch of hundreds in South Texas, certainly hundreds here in Corpus Christi, who had no place to go, no insurance, no nothing. There was no insurance there. Some of them couldn't work. Some of them had a small pension. Who do you think was appointed by the Veterans Administration to take care of the veterans? Dr. Hector Perez Garcia. That's how the doctor got involved with knowing so much of what was going on with veterans. And certainly about that time we were bringing dead veterans for funerals here. and we started doing that, especially during the non-war. But at the beginning, it was medical attention service for veterans who were just out of service. There were not enough doctors to take care of it. It's not that they didn't want to do it. And anyway, there was no pay. Mm-hmm. No pay. Who's going to pay for that Chicano there? He's got no insurance. See? So the doctor was, and the VA moved a clinic here, and we could go there and get first aid and things like that. I became sick with rheumatic fever, like I told you. Believe it or not, I got well. I never was sick until I retired in '87, and I found out that I was having trouble breathing and stuff like that. And just for the record here, I have artificial valves. I have an artificial aorta valve and mitral valve in my heart because of the result of rheumatic fever doing damage to my heart. I have lost weight. I'm in good shape. I would like to be around another 20 years, maybe. I'll be 100 years old then.
And your involvement in the GI Forum?
I am involved in the GI Forum in this respect. I'm a charter member of the GI Forum. I showed you my certificate, and I attend their meetings. I pay their dues and stuff like that. Actually, I am probably one of the oldest veterans around now. See, I'll be 80 pretty soon, so I don't go to meetings at night and stuff like that. But we have a lot of young fellows from the Vietnam War who are active in the GI Forum right now. And they're carrying the load and carrying what we're doing. They look for us for advice and stuff like that. I buy their tickets. I buy their ads. and so do a lot of other fellows my age. We support them.
We're winding down the interview now. Starting to run out of things to talk about. Mm-hmm. But there's one thing that I was interested in that I wanted to get your opinion on. It's because from what you've told me about different experiences, and you remember seeing movies, and it's the new movies that are coming out now that are documenting what was going on in that time period during World War II, post and pre-war.
Yeah, the Discovery Channel is very good at it. It's very good. You know, education, how nice it would be in the educational system. Well, I studied Spanish. I took 3 years of Spanish. My father taught Spanish in those ranchos, in the ranches, because my daddy was born in 1864. My daddy rode the Chisholm Trail and the Spanish Trail with cattle with my grandfather, fought Indians and stuff like that on the way to Abilene, Kansas with cattle. And he would tell me stories like this. This is a story that I haven't said to anybody, but I think people should know this. And my daddy was 17, 18, 19 years old back in those days. When he was 20 years old, he was a good horseman. He knew how to. He had big old hands because he, you know, when you fool around with horses a lot, mules and stuff like that, he was a good horseman. And he would say, we'd go up there, and of course they'd be wearing 6-shooters and rifles and stuff like that. The white man, which is the same to say this, killed all the buffalo. They killed the buffalo for the pelts and stuff like that. Papa used to tell us stories about mounds and mounds of beef or buffalo there rotting in the prairie because the hunters who came and hunt the buffalo for the skin. And frankly, for la lengua, they would just eat la lengua and leave it there. And the Indians were starving. And eventually, by the 1890s, there were no more buffalo. There was a lot of wild cattle loose in the prairie, longhorn cattle, and wild Texas cattle was loose in the prairie because after the war with Mexico, when Texas got its independence, a lot of people abandoned their farmlands and their lands, and they went back to the border to get protection because there was protection around Mier and Camargo and Cerralvo. There was soldiers there, there was more civilization, and there was more people with firearms to protect them from actually the raiding of the Indians, because that's what it was. So there was a lot of wild cattle around. Just the wild cattle replaced the buffalo. See? And then when the war, the people in the East were tired of eating mutton, because they were eating sheep and goat and stuff, mutton, cheap. They needed food. They needed steak, you know. They needed beef. So, my goodness, the market was great. There's a lot of wild cattle in Texas, and people would get it together and brand them and take them up there. And my father would tell us the stories about the Indians would come up, and by this time the Indians had learned to speak Spanish. The Apaches and Comancheros learned to speak Spanish, and then they would, of course, they'd go up there with a little flag and say, carne, you know, we want some food. And grandfather, my grandfather, who I never knew, he died many years ago, Pedro Flores, would say, well, córtales hay unas vacas para que se los lleven para comérselas. Cut a few of the herd and let the Indians have them to eat them. And of course, they would usually cut the ones who were laggers. The laggers were the cows that were getting old and couldn't keep up with the herd, the ones in the back. Well, the Indians were smart enough. They didn't want the laggers. They wanted the cattle that was healthy up there in the front. And they would point to it. And he was either give him some cattle from the front or fight. And sometimes they had to fight, and we lost some of our cowboy friends. We had an advantage. I say we, my family, and the people who came from close to the border had an advantage. We had Indians working as cowboys with us, see? And they knew some of those Indians. Apparently, I'm sure that's what it was. But then I had 2 or 3 scuffles. I remember my papa talked about that. But never had anything that you would call a serious situation. The meat took care of it. They wanted something to eat, that's all. They were starving. The Indians were starving to death. Just like they did up there in North Dakota, South Dakota. They went up there and shot all the buffaloes up there. And the Indians were starved. I guess you know that part of the history, huh? Mm-hmm. That happened. And it's just a tragic thing that happened to the American Indian. That's how come I'm very proud to say that I am a Hispanic American Indian. I am on my mother's side. See? And I think people should know those things. We are, as a race, Spanish-speaking Americans, as a race, we are the newest kids on the block. We are the newest race there is. Now, being Indian, we can say we're a little older because we've been here for years. But the Hispanic race is growing at such a fast rate. Like I was telling you on television, I saw a show from Peru or Venezuela today. And there were 25 nations, Spanish-speaking nations, being represented at this concert they were having. And goes to show that the Hispanic influence, it used to be just in the Southwest, and now we got people who are born and raised here in Corpus Christi, who live in Washington, Indiana, who live in all over California, who live in Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Jersey, even in Maine, they live up there. And it's just we're growing, and that's the future. The Hispanic population is going to exert a great future in the future of the world. And I hope that we get ourselves an education that we can learn to set an example for the rest of the world to follow. A lot of people don't know that in Europe and the Balkans country, there's so many religions up there fighting each other, so many different languages fighting each other. Most people in those parts of the world know 3, 4, or 5 languages. For us Hispanics, knowing good Spanish, you can learn to speak Italian very easy, Portuguese very easy, and French. You can pick up those 3 languages with Spanish and English. You're just as better off than the people in Europe. And if we can set an example of what to do under a democratic form of government, representing the people, not special interests, not rich, powerful families, not dictators or patrones or generales or Castros, dictators who want to lord it over the people. They think they're going to live forever. we can do that and pass on the wisdom to the other generation that they're building up, we're going to be way up there as far as an example to the whole world. It's coming. You can take it to the bank.
This is the last question that I'm going to ask you, and you can sum up and make a closing statement about everything. And it's just going back to what the project is about, and we're documenting stories from World War II and what you were doing before the war, during the war, and after. Looking back on your experience, how do you think it affected your life? How did your World War II experience, that time frame, the depression and the war and afterwards and all the movements that you've seen, how did that affect you?
The military service is probably the best thing that can happen to any young kid who probably doesn't want to go to high school. Of course, now they better get out of high school, and then I suggest that they join the service for at least 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. I have seen kids that used to be in trouble as juveniles join the Marines, join the Army and Air Force, and they come back. Some of them are sergeants. A couple of them I met a long time ago. They're lieutenants, and they changed their life completely. They're well-groomed. They got good manners. They teach them discipline. They teach them control. And above all, they get to travel and learn about the world. The world is huge, but it's getting smaller because of communications, television, radio, and all those things. People are going to have to know and respect. We're going to have to know about the religion of the Mohammedans, the Muslims. We're going to have to know about the Jewish religion, the Baptists, the Protestants, whatever you have. Learn about the people's religions, learn their customs, respect their attitude, respect their customs, respect them as human beings. And don't go around judging people because of their religion, because of their size, because of their color of their skin, or anything like that. All of that is superficial. The time will come when people will be at that level someday. I don't think I'm going to see it, but I think it's going to dawn on people that they're going to quit living in the past. And like this poem, I think I said a few things to you just a minute ago. I read a poem a long time ago by William Cullen Bryant that said, "The past is too much with us, and the people looking back. The glory of the present is to make the future free. We love our land for what she is and what she is to be." That's part of a poem that was written by a gentleman named William Cullen Bryant. The best teacher I ever had, a lady named Miss Stevenson, taught me about Shakespeare. What did I know about Shakespeare? She made me memorize so much Shakespeare. I still spout it once in a while. My wife gets mad because I remember it. But that taught me a lot of things. She taught me read, hold your opinions to yourself, and learn to listen to other people. We're not listening to others. We've got too many people on television right now and on the radio who want to express their opinion. Mean, stuff like that. Everybody's watching us, and it's just a matter of time when it's going to dawn on all of us that we're going to have to be a lot more patient. We're going to have to be a lot more considerate for anyone else, regardless of race, color, or creed. We respect them, and that's going to bring us a lot of respect. What else can we say? And we hope for the amen.
Well, okay. Well, that's it then.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time.
You read that. I said, Miss Stevenson, that poem that I wrote there about America, she inspired me to write.